This presentation is by Rachel Locke for Unit 17, Human Immunity. These are the topics I will cover during the presentation. Infection is caused by microorganisms such as bacteria and viruses, and when they enter the body, grow and multiply and attack the body, usually through the mouth, nose, or through an opening of the skin, like cuts or surgical wounds. Bacteria are single-celled organisms which can cause illnesses such as pneumonia. Viruses are different to bacteria because they need a host to replicate and survive. They cause illnesses such as flu, measles, mumps, and chickenpox. Skin diseases such as ringworm are caused by fungi or mold-like organisms. Parasites are living organisms and make their home on the body. They can usually be seen with the naked eye, for example, a head lice or scabies. Infections can be transmitted through either direct contact, indirect contact, insect bites, or even food contamination. Indirect spreading of infections happen when the bacteria or virus is transmitted to a surface or object, for example, an eating utensil or a work uniform, for another person to touch and transfer to their own body, usually via their mouth. It is thought that a cold virus can survive on an indoor surface for several days. Insect bites can also transmit infectious diseases via carriers known as vectors. This is the common transferred method for bugs such as mosquitoes and cockroaches. Food can also become contaminated with bacteria such as E. coli, which can cause food poisoning and make a person really sick. The body has three lines of defence to protect our cells and vital organs from infection: the innate, non-specific defence and mechanisms which operate to prevent pathogens from entering the body or function to eliminate invaders. These defences are genetically programmed and happen autonomously. The skin is the largest organ in the body and is our most prominent physical barrier of defence. The epidermis of the skin provides a waterproof covering which prevents penetration of microbial organisms, chemical irritants and toxins. If the skin becomes cut or grazed, it can heal itself by forming a scab to act as a temporary barrier whilst the skin underneath mends. The saltiness of the skin and the presence of normal flora are also innate defences. This is because they don't provide the right environment for bacteria to grow. The body can also fight microorganisms using enzymes found in the secretion of internal mucous membranes. These membranes are accountable for filtering infectious agents, pathogens and allergens whilst letting nutrients to pass through. Stomach acid, pancreatic enzymes, bile and intestinal secretion can be found in the gastrointestinal tract and each provide a chemical barrier against the infection. Movement of chyme through the digestive system via peristaltic contractions assists to eliminate microorganisms which may otherwise cause harm. Because pathogens can enter the body through the nose, our nasal cavities are coated with a sticky mucus that catches bacteria before they can reach the airway. Although this is not always efficient, humans have microscopic projections on the lining of the airway called cilia that sweep particles up to the throat where they can be eaten and absorbed into the stomach. The urinary system is prone to infection in females, despite the fact it has effective barriers to infection. The female urethra is short and can allow a passage for external bacteria to travel into the bladder. However, the majority of bacteria will be flushed out when the bladder empties for both men and women. When an injury takes place, the body produces an inflammatory response, which is the innate immune system response to damage or infection involving a number of cellular events. The physical effect includes dilation of blood vessels, forming gaps in the cell wall, allowing large blood cells to pass through, increasing blood flow and creating inflammation. The area may look swollen and warm to touch because of the extra blood and protein attracted to the infection. This can be painful due to the inflammation. Inflammation is one of the second lines of defence, and it's vital because it isolates the affected area, preventing damage from spreading and encourages healing. In the image, the skin has been injured and chemical signals have been generated by the cell to urge phagocytes to travel into the area and absorb the bacteria into a vesicle known as a phagosome. Phagocytosis is an innate defence which is a second line of defence. A phagolysosome is formed when a phagosome unites with a lysosome. The content of these phagolysosomes are destroyed by digestive enzymes, putting an end to the phagocytosis process. When a monocytes become inflamed, macrophages form, and they play a critical role in the immune system. Macrophages are a type of cytokine cell that defends the body against infection by preventing or eliminating germs. Cytokines are signalling proteins produced by a variety of cells that help to boost the immune response by modulating inflammation and immunity. There are more than 30 complement proteins in all, which are activated when a pathogen, for example, is present. They interact to start a chain reaction that attracts phagocytes to remove undesirable particles, initiate inflammation and produce protein to combat invading organisms. Antigens are molecules found inside pathogens that aid in their entry into the body. Antigens trigger the immune response in the body by alerting the cells to an impending attack. Neutrophils lack antigens, whereas macrophages have antigens. Neutrophils are the most common white blood cell and are frequently the first to reach an infection or injury site. These medium-sized cells adhere to blood vessel walls and prevent bacteria from entering the bloodstream. To carry out the phagocytosis process, monocytes transform into macrophages. On the slide, you can view descriptions of other immune cells. Lymphocytes are a type of white blood cell found in lymphatic tissue throughout the body. T cells and B cells are the two types of lymphocytes. T cells are immune cells that mature in the thymus gland and aid in the destruction of infection and malignant cells. The most prevalent form of T cell is the helper T cell, which regulates most immunological processes in the body by secreting lymphokines that stimulate other T cells to develop and fight foreign substances. When activated, B cells mature in the bone marrow and create antibodies or immunoglobulins. Plasma cells are B cells that produce antibodies into the bloodstream to give immunity and memory. In lymph nodes, B cells store the memory of a specific antigen to be used if required. Immunoglobulins have a variety of roles, including immune cell recruitment, toxin neutralization, and antigen elimination. The immunoglobulin chains are arranged in a Y form, with the smallest chain having the potential to attach to antigens, as you can see. The immunoglobulin is given its name based on the type of heavy chain it has. On the slide, the most common immunoglobulin variants are displayed. The most common immunoglobulin is IgG. It is the only immunoglobulin that can convey some protection from mother to baby via the umbilical cord and placenta. IgE binds to cells in mucous membranes and the skin, allowing them to produce histamine. Hives, hay fever and asthma are examples of IgE-mediated allergy reactions. IgM is capable of destroying the intruder on its own. IgM activates the complement pathway in the same way as IgG does, and the two versions can work together as an antitoxin against the toxins of diphtheria, tetanus, botulism and anthrax bacteria. The immune system uses antigens found throughout the body as well as in hazardous diseases to determine whether it should fight or not, depending on whether the antigens are alien or self. Foreign antigens are those found in pathogens that are memorized by B cells when they are detected in the body, resulting in antibody production. Self-makers, also known as major histocompatibility complex molecules, are unique surface molecules found on all nucleated cells that designate them as self or MHC class 1. The immune system has self-tolerance, which implies that cells with these MHC class 1 identification tags will not be attacked. Although a person may acquire an autoimmune disease in rare situations, which occur when B or T cells get activated against self-antigens, the cause of this is unknown. The occurrence of an abnormal immune response produced by repeated exposure to a particular antigen is known as hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity illnesses can be classified according to their underlying cause, as you can see on the slide. Autoimmune diseases can manifest itself in a variety of ways, including weariness, muscle ache, a low fever and inflammation. Rheumatoid arthritis is one of the more common autoimmune diseases described by the NHS 2019 as a long-term condition that can cause pain, swelling and stiffness in the joints. Rheumatoid arthritis has no known cure, but symptoms can be managed with medication and supportive therapies like physiotherapy. Correction of joint issues can be accomplished by surgery. Women and smokers, as well as individuals with a family history of autoimmune diseases, are thought to be at higher risk of developing an autoimmune disease. Multiple sclerosis is another frequent autoimmune illness defined by the NHS 2019 as a condition that can affect the brain and spinal cords, causing a wide range of potential symptoms, including problems with vision, arm or leg movement, and sensation or balance. There are two forms of multiple sclerosis, the most common of which is relapsing remitted MS, which manifests itself as a period of new or worsening symptoms for a period of time before gradually improving over time. Treatments for MS include a short course of steroid medicine and treatments for certain symptoms like bladder control issues and muscular stiffness. An organ transplant is a life-saving treatment that replaces a malfunctioning organ with a healthy organ donated by a donor. Unfortunately, the immune system does not always accept the donor organ, mistaking it for a foreign agent, and rejecting the transplanted organ occurs as a result. The immune system can recognize antigens on the surface of the cell as alien or self. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, when an organ is transplanted, the immune system may not recognize the antigens on the organ and launch an attack. Physicians will use tissue type to try to match the organ donor and recipient as closely as possible to improve the chances of that the body will accept the new organ. Monoclonal antibodies are also utilized during and after the surgery to combat particular T cells that are known as trigger rejection. If you are rejected, it will be one of the three categories depicted on the slide. Acute rejection, which is the most prevalent type of rejection seen, as all recipients will experience some level of acute rejection. If a patient is given the wrong blood type, this is an example of hyperacute rejection. Active immunity refers to the ability to resist a disease by producing antibodies, either naturally or artificially. Exposure to a specific pathogen, such as a common cold, causes natural active immunity to develop. There are many different types of common cold, but once the body is exposed to one, the immune system produces antibodies to fight the virus, which are subsequently stored in memory B cells as immunity to that strain. Antigens are delivered to the body via vaccines, causing the immune system to react. This results in artificial immunity. This reaction, like the active response, increases the development of antibodies and memory cells. If your body becomes infected with naturally occurring antigens following immunization, the body has the ability to combat and kill them before illness symptoms appear. Immunological memory is the term for this. Antibodies are transferred from person to person in natural passive immunity, as in the instance of a mother and her unborn child. Immunity that is handed on in this manner can provide protection for up to 6 months. When a person receives antibodies generated by someone else in the form of a transfusion or injection, this is known as artificial induction passive immunity, because the immune system is not stimulated throughout this process. Protection from artificial generated passive immunity lasts only a few weeks. To promote immunity, a vaccine comprises a little amount of pathogen that triggers antibody formation in a vaccine. Pathogens can be treated live cells, harmless fragments, pathogen-produced poisons, or dead pathogens. According to the NHS 2019, vaccines teach your immune system how to create antibodies that protect you from disease. It's much safer for your immune system to learn this through vaccination than by catching the disease and treating them. Once your immune system knows how to fight a disease, it can often protect you for many years. The main reaction is the process that occurs when a pathogen enters the body for the first time. After the lymphocytes have identified the antigen, the plasma cell must generate a suitable antibody, which takes time. During this time, the body is prone to developing symptoms. If the body is exposed to the same pathogen again, it will respond with a secondary reaction that is much faster than the primary response. Memory cells are able to identify pathogens quickly and make the necessary antibodies to combat them, usually before symptoms appear. In an article for the Vaccine Knowledge Project 2019, measles is described as highly infectious viral disease which can lead to serious complications such as pneumonia. In the chart from Public Health England, you can see the number of recorded cases of measles from 1940 to 1995 in England and Wales. The first measles vaccine was introduced in 1968 and had a substantial effect on the number of cases. A second vaccine, which contained a measles pathogen MMR, was introduced in 1988 bringing about a further decline in cases recorded. Data from Public Health England 2019 shows that no more than 2 people per year have died from measles from 1999 to 2017. Michelle Roberts, the BBC News Online's health editor, wrote an article in 2019 on the surge in measles cases in the UK, claiming that despite massive public health efforts, more parents are avoiding vaccination for their children. Robert attributes this to a paper by Andrew Wakefield, who alleged a relationship between the MMR vaccine and autism. Robert says this led to a drop in parents taking their children for the jab. Herd immunity is a method of conferring protection to individuals of the community who are unable to be vaccinated, such as newborn babies or people who are ill, without requiring them to come into touch with the pathogen either naturally or artificially. Herd immunity is based on the idea that if the majority of the population is protected by vaccination or natural immunity, illnesses are less likely to spread. Several issues might arise during the outbreak before the population achieves a high enough degree of immunity to achieve herd immunity. Pathogens, for example, can present with a variety of antigens, making it challenging for the body to protect itself against all of them. Pathogens also have antigenic variability, which causes the same issue as antigen variations. Because some illnesses are easily transmitted from person to person and some populations suffer more than others, the threshold of immunisation necessary to establish herd immunity can be affected by the transmissibility and severity of the pathogen's microorganisms. Herd immunity is thought to be more difficult to establish in today's world since our society is more globally connected than ever before, making us vulnerable to global pandemics such as the SARS-CoV-2 coronavirus outbreak in 2020. Before immunisation, diseases including measles, polio and whooping cough were significant causes of juvenile death. The World Health Organization 2020 says without vaccines we are at risk of serious illness and disability from diseases like measles, meningitis, pneumonia, tetanus and polio. The WHO estimated that vaccines save between 2 and 3 million lives every year. An example of a global vaccine effort is COVID-19, discovered in late 2019 with vaccinations beginning in December 2020 in the United Kingdom. This vaccine campaign is still continuing on, but more than 54.7 million vaccinations have been provided in the UK. The NHS has added pharmacies to the list of medical professionals who could administer a vaccine to enhance vaccine uptake. This is thought to make it easier for adults with full-time jobs and families to find time to visit a clinic and get vaccinated. Some people refuse to be vaccinated, which the WHO claims disturbs the programme's efficiency and classifies them as anti-vaxxers. Factors influencing COVID-19 vaccination uptake across minority ethnic groups were outlined in a recent publication prepared by the UK Government Scientific Advisory Group for Emergencies. According to the research and analyst paper, reported vaccine uptake had been lower in areas with a higher proportion of minority ethnic group populations, and barriers to vaccine uptake included risk perception, low confidence in the vaccine, access barriers, inconvenience, social demographical context and lack of endorsements.